Hello. Welcome to episode 13 of Giggling Witches. Yay! I'm Sadie.
I'm Pam.
And we meet every week to giggle and chat about magic. And today we're going to talk about like life purpose and staying motivated and just trying to kind of like stay in alignment with who you are while navigating life and all of the like outside noise and still like being true to yourself. And I actually had a reading today, and I don't know if this is what you've been experiencing. I know I kind of like go back and forth, but like when you're in your like spiritual bubble, right? Like when you're like, I don't know, like I tend to like cozy up in bed and like do my meditation and my tapping and my journaling, right? When I'm in my bubble, I feel so good, so strong, so infinite, so powerful. And then it's like time to go into the real world. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Where did she go?
Yeah.
So kind of want to talk about like bringing our spiritual self that feels so good when we're doing our things into like everyday life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why, but that just made me kind of feel like the Wizard of Oz. Like she starts in like her home base and then she literally gets thrown through the world and ends up in this new place, but then she like finds her footing and like
There's no place like home.
There's no place like home.
Coming back home to ourselves. But first, we have to have some silly, goofy time. I need to like catch. I've been really busy and I have been doing so much stuff, and I just feel like I have fun stories to share.
Yes.
But do you have any silly goofies for us?
I only have one, and it's something I already texted you about.
As always, because we can't keep it to ourselves.
Oh, I was going to say one thing earlier too before we started recording, but I have a PSA again.
Oh,
and this
Pam
is
service
Pam
announcement.
service announcement. And this is not something that I'm asking advice for. This is genuinely a PSA because I had a really long weekend. I was hosting, so it's a lot of like being out of your routine and all the things. And
yeah,
I've only done this a few times where like on Monday I have therapy, so like I'll go to the zoo and like walk around the zoo, and
oh yeah,
it's really nice. No one is there on Monday mornings because it's a Monday morning. This is a PSA to check the school break schedule before you go do things where children might be present, because I got there and it's like 30 minutes away. So it's not like, if it's like busy, I'm going to be like, oh, it's fine. I'll just turn around and go home. Not that like, it's not like that bad of a drive. It's just like, I'm not going to drive 30 minutes to like not go.
Yeah.
And I got there and it was full of children everywhere. And I looked at one of the moms. I was like, is it like a school holiday? Because she had said something about like, oh, I think that area will be packed too. So I was like, okay, so like she's on board with how busy this is right now. And then I looked at her and was like, is it like a school holiday or something? She was like, they're on fall break. And I was like, copy that. Okay. She was like, yep. I was like, okay.
So before you go to the zoo,
yeah,
check the school schedule.
Check the school break schedule, because that was an unpleasant encounter.
Not for Pam.
Looked like, when like they have like a holiday event or something.
Yeah.
For like 4 kids. That's what it looked like. Even during the summer, I have never seen it so packed. It was insane.
That's insane. Crazy.
I think probably because it was like the first day of break, and everyone
they have like a whole week off for fall.
Week. I don't remember having this.
I didn't have that.
And I feel like if we had fall break,
we had like a day for like Thanksgiving. We had like,
that's what I was thinking.
Thursday,
like maybe
Friday,
Thanksgiving or something like that.
It's not Thanksgiving yet.
No. And my therapist pointed out that they do start school earlier down here. So she's like, maybe for them it makes sense.
They have like a shorter summer break and they have this extra break.
They start in like August and then they end, I think, in May.
So they get done earlier. I mean, we always started like right after Labor Day, and then we got done in like like we went like 1 week into June, I think, usually.
Yeah. I think because it gets so hot down here that they usually
That makes sense.
keep it. But anyway, so I was listening to this audiobook and oh wait, it's not in here. I thought I sent you this photo, but perhaps I didn't. Anyway, I was listening to this audiobook and it's like not in my phone anymore. And it's called Midwives. Let me get the name so I don't ruin it.
At the zoo, you were listening to this?
Oh no, sorry. This is
okay. This is a new story.
This is a different story now. um, I don't remember what it's called. It's like midwives, nurses, and something else. It's a really short book, but it's all about the history of like women, witches, and like nurses and all that kind of stuff. And then they're talking about how witches are like they started promoting, the church started talking about how witches are in league with the devil and they work with the devil, and then it made me be like like, and how like he would come to them like disguised as a goat and all these things.
Oh, we did text about this, and we were like, how did it become?
I was like, it's just
a picture of the goat with his tongue out, like
I know, that's what I was looking for. I was like, it's just wild to me that like
that
the church,
that little creature right here. They were like,
saw this
like
this animal
Satan.
and was like, there's evil afoot. Like
there is evil afoot.
There is evil afoot. Like something is naughty.
I forgot. I meant to like try to like look into that. Maybe we'll circle back on that next week and try to understand the history of the association between
with the
goats and the devil, because it is so funny because goats, I mean, goats are one of my favorite animal. We like my grandparents had goats on their farm like that because my dad grew up on the farm, and then when I was younger, until I think they retired and sold the farm when maybe I was around like 10 to 12. I don't know. But we'd spend like a lot of weekends there. My dad was be helping out on the farm, and we would just be getting into mischief and kind of helping with chores, but we were little. But we loved messing with the goats because they're like very territorial over their barn, and but they had all their like horns kind of like rounded down because they were kind of naughty and they would like run after you and butt you. But we thought it was so funny. But I just love goats. Like they're so cute. I've gone to goat yoga before.
Ooh.
I love goats. I would love to have goats if I ever get a house.
Have you seen
and actually like a house and not an apartment?
They started putting like pool noodles on the goats.
Oh yes. oh my God. Yeah, they're so cute. So I would love to, we need to circle back on that, a history of that association. That is so funny. They were like women and goats. We cannot
be trusted.
Cannot be trusted. There's like something going on here. Something conspiring.
Yeah. I was like, maybe it's the square pupils. Like,
yeah.
They like are like, something is not right here.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I was laughing. It is. I never like thought about that. There's evil afoot. That is silly goofy.
That is so ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
Honestly, in my really quick Google just now, this does make a lot of sense. It's because one of the pagan gods, Pan.
Oh.
So they tried to demonize the pagan.
Okay, that makes sense.
But we could do a deeper dive into it.
We'll do a little bit more research and circle back on that. Make note. Oh my God.
Okay, that's so you funny. Start all your stories.
I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. Like a lot, I did a lot. I'm like actually really sleepy. I should have made coffee before this.
I'm also really sleepy.
I've been so busy. But doing all fun stuff. Well, first a sad thing, but then I have a cute story about it. So I think it was on Friday, we had to put my family dog down. Max, which he was a big golden doodle, and it was really sad because of course like it's just your pet, you know, as
Yeah.
part of the family. He was 12, which is a good
Whoa.
age for a big dog. He was a big
Yeah.
dog and he was 12. I think for all of us, it was like there's this connection between Max and my mom. So it was like,
A
because we
little.
got Max when my mom was still healthy, you know, whatever. And my mom always was kind of like, no pets. I don't want a dog, whatever. And we got a golden doodle because my mom was a little bit allergic and they're more hypoallergenic, whatever. And the classic story of like the person that doesn't want the pet ends up being closest with the pet, right?
Yeah.
And then when my mom did get sick and she couldn't work anymore, but she was still really active and she like more or less felt fine, but like she couldn't, her job was very physical, so she just couldn't do it. So she was home all the time with Max. And so they were just like really, really close. Max never left her side when she was sick. He is a very untrained dog. We live out in the country. Like we're in like a little residential circle neighborhood, but it's out in the country. And so his whole life has just roamed to the neighbors, to throughout the neighborhood. He's super naughty. Like if you try to put him on a leash or something, he's so untrained. And all this to say, like when somebody is in hospice in the hospital, you can fill out paperwork to bring the pet into the hospital to say goodbye. And Max, the naughtiest dog I've ever, does not listen for shit. He was on his leash. He walked into the hospital. He walked into the elevator. He sat like a good boy. He knew, it was like he knew how
He
serious
knew.
this was, and he
Yeah.
was so well behaved. He didn't jump on anybody. He didn't get, and he I don't know. I feel like all golden doodles are like anxious little.
Yeah.
He was so calm. He came into the room. He sat up on the chair next to my mom's bed and just stared at her. Oh, I'm getting emotional. Just stared at her the whole time. Like he knew, like that was the last time he was seeing his mom. And so I think like his passing kind of felt like a little, I don't know, like there's a piece of mom we
Yeah.
associated with him. And it was almost like, I don't know, at least for me, it just felt like another little piece of her feeling like it's going away.
Yeah.
But it, you know, again, like I got to hang out with him all summer because I was home all summer. So I spent so much time with him and
Good.
that was really fortunate. But it was very sad. He just his back he's been stiff and whatever for a while. His back leg just completely went out and then he started just being sick, like
Yeah.
whatever. And there was just nothing more to do. So we put him down. It was really, really sad. Of course, I'm like here by myself, you know, and I'm just like crying and looking at pictures of him and whatever. But so that was on Friday. But on Sunday, I went on this tour, which I want to like talk more about the tour. But for this one part of the tour, we went to this we stopped for lunch at this restaurant that was like in this cave. It was really, really cool. But it was on this property where there's just like tons of dogs and chickens and whatever before you go down into this cave restaurant. And we were all done and everyone in the tour is just kind of like we're just kind of like all like kind of like standing outside waiting for our tour guide to be like, okay, like time to get back on the bus. And all of a sudden, all at once, like six big dogs, these are all big dogs, like 6 or 7 dogs just surround me. One sits down on my feet, another one's looking up at me, like pet me. And I'm kind of like nervous because I'm like, I don't know, like are these wild dogs?
Yeah.
I start petting him. And I just felt, and like everyone in the tour, like there's a bunch of people around, but they all swarm me at the same time and just are all like sitting by me and like looking at me. And everyone in
Max
the
was
tour
like,
is like laughing. They're like, what is going on? Like, did you just call them? And I was like, no, I don't know. And then I was like, Max.
yeah. I was just gonna say Max was like, hey,
Max was like,
guys.
hey guys, can you go say hi to my sister for me? She's really sad. It was so funny and so cool. And it was, yeah, like the tour, everyone on the tour was like, are you a dog whisperer? I was like, I don't know.
I am now.
I am now. So it was really, really cute. And it was just sort of it just felt like like a really clear sign from spirit. Like, because it was so bizarre, you know? It was just like all at once, 7 huge dogs just come and sit on me.
Oh, I love that.
It was
Very
so
cute.
It was
Sorry about your puppy.
Thank you. I know it's gonna be. It was like I was crying like the day of, and I feel emotional right now. But then like when you're away from home, it's kind of like easy to forget. But I know like the first time I go back home and he's not there, it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
and all my family's gonna be like fine by then, and I'm just gonna be like, but yeah, he had a good long life though. But
Good.
R.I.P. Max, shout out.
Yeah. R.I.P.
But I've been doing so much fun stuff in Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
I have my notes over here, so I keep looking down. So one of the main, there were two big things I wanted to do in Mexico City, and I did both of them over the weekend. So the biggest thing I wanted to do was go see the Frida Kahlo Museum. It's her
Yeah.
home, Casa Azul. She lived there so I think it said she lived there 36 years of
Wow.
her life, and she passed, I think it was when she was 47.
Whoa.
So she lived there most of her life. It was where she was like born and grew up, and then her and Diego lived there as well. So I have chills right now. And so it was her home. And so when you're walking around the neighborhood is called Coyoacan. It's such a cute neighborhood. Um, Definitely like would be like a great place if you were visiting Mexico City. In my opinion, it would be it's not where I live, but it would be a great place to get your Airbnb or something. It's really
Mm.
very like walkable, cute. Um, but it was, I just felt her. Like she is such, first of all, there were so many, so you go into the museum and you kind of like it's set up that you walk through the house itself, and then there's like a big courtyard area too. But you walk through the house and there's just tons of like family, like old photos, photos of her family, kind of like telling the story and through the ages. There's art of hers there that you don't see a lot of places. There's half done things and scribbles and things from when she was young, and it's absolutely incredible, but you can just feel her spirit there
Yeah.
like so strongly. She's like, there was these old videos that they had like on projector of her in the home, and she's just the most, I mean, I already knew this, but like I don't know, seeing it there, like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire life, and just
Yeah.
so full of life. Like
Yeah.
so full of life. Like she's like seeing a video of her, you could just, it radiated her energy. Like she's just incredible. And I've loved learning about her for a very long time. She's just one of my biggest inspirations. But it was incredible. And she, so if for anyone that maybe doesn't know her story, but so when she was little, when she was like 6, she had polio. So that caused like one of her legs to not grow properly. So she had like one leg that was a little bit shorter than the other, which was not that big of a deal, but it was cool. We saw some of her shoes and stuff, and she had her shoes custom made where one would have a heel and then the other one would be flat to like help her legs.
Yeah.
But then when she was a teenager, she got into a horrible accident. A railway car hit the bus she was in.
Jesus.
And basically, this is graphic. Oh, every time I hear about it and think about it. But basically, like a metal pole impaled her through her vagina and like completely through her body. And like obviously her spine and stuff was connected. So I mean, she wasn't supposed to like be able to walk after that. I mean, she was just completely impaled, like horrible. Like so fortunate she lived, and so fortunate. I mean, her strength of character. She did walk. She was in a lot of pain her whole life, and she did use wheelchairs and walking sticks and stuff. Cane. Um, but when she was recovering from that, that's kind of when she like started, like I think she was also like always like really reading and art. She like loved it all. She loved to learn. She was super intelligent. But this is where she started to paint like a lot. And in the museum, so she had these body casts around her whole torso from like chest to waist because her spine was really compromised from the accident, and she had a lot of
Yeah.
surgeries on her spine. So she was in these full casts that she could barely move in, but she painted them. Um like because she was bedridden, and that's what she did. She to entertain herself. She just started painting. So they had the casts there
Wow.
that I mean they almost look like a corset, right? Because that's where they fitted on
Hmm.
her body. With her like that she they were hers and that she painted. They weren't replicas, like they were the actual cast, and it just blew my mind because I've just read so many books about her and learned about her and seen photos, and it was just there in front of you, like absolutely incredible. Um, but she just so that accident, and then she wanted to be a mother so badly, but that accident like basically like ruined her
Destroyed it.
uterus because
Yeah.
the yeah. So I think she had a number of miscarriages, and it was just very, traumatic and difficult for her. But what was amazing about Frida, she was really like the first woman to like paint real life. I
Mm.
have children right now, but she would paint from her experiences and her pain, and she's got a lot of weird stuff that
Yeah.
you look at it, it makes you a little uncomfortable, or it makes you like it just makes you feel things. And she didn't try to like she wasn't there to like just paint beauty, she was there to
Yes.
paint
Yeah. Life.
life. um and God, she just leaves me speechless. I think about her all the time. She's like my Roman Empire. I think about Frida Kahlo every day. And I think, honestly, she's so appropriate to talk about when we want to have an episode talking about purpose and motivation
Yeah.
and living with alignment, because all of the tragedy in her life, she could have really just fallen into victim mode and nobody could have blamed her for that, but
Hmm.
she found she just expressed herself. Oh, and then the other thing is the bed that she was in when she was recovering from these surgeries, her mom installed a mirror above it. And
Yeah.
that's why she painted so many self portraits, because she would look at herself in the mirror and be painting herself. Or I don't know if that's why, but there was the mirror installed there, and she had these special easels made so that when she was lying in bed, she could paint, or from her wheelchair, or she could adjust the easels, like we saw all of these things. Um, and so she's just someone that just took what life gave her and was like, okay, I will make art.
Yeah. Very inspiring.
Very
Very.
inspiring. And her and Diego, which their relationship, not a good example of a healthy relationship, but I mean, they were married and then they were divorced and they were married again, and they both you know would sleep around. Frida was bisexual, so she also
Good for
had
her.
affairs with women. um but a fascinating couple, and they always were hosting people. I mean, there was a quote on one of the walls that just said like Casa Azul always had at least one guest room filled, their
Mm.
home. There was they were so social. I mean, they both like were kind of like larger than life characters. And God, it was just so cool to be at that museum. But her famous painting, I bought this journal because it just struck me so much. If you're watching the video, you can see, but her famous painting of the watermelons
Mm.
is like, I got this journal.
So pretty.
But this is famous because she painted this, and then shortly before she died, these were like her last brush strokes. She wrote "Viva la vida," like shortly before she died, which means long live life.
Love that.
I, I'm like, it makes me so emotional. And I sat this painting, the original is there in the museum and it's on its own. And I sat in front of it and I just stared at it and I had like silent tears streaming down my face, like Viva la vida, long live life. And I was just thinking about how like a full life is like full, like living life to the fullest. And I
Mhm.
sent out a Substack about this today, but it's not just like happiness and beauty and romance and love. Like a full life is the polarity, so that you understand, like you have the full spectrum of experiences. You can't really truly appreciate like joy without knowing grief, right? Like
Mm,
you can't experience it to its full extent until you've known both things, right?
yeah.
And I think she was such a beautiful example of someone who lived her life to the fullest, even though she was so trapped by her body. Um, and anyways, it was amazing. It changed my
Love
life.
that. That was beautiful.
Absolutely amazing. Um, and then I was walking around that neighborhood and I was laughing because a young man stopped me and he was like, "Hey, can I take your picture?" I was like, full circle. I think we talked about this last week,
We
right?
did.
But look at you. You can be so proud of me, okay? I because I was gonna be like, sure. We made it partway there, and then I was like, but I heard Pam's voice in my head being like, no.
Oh no.
So I was
I don't
like,
want to crush your spirit.
no. Well, I was questioning. I was like, because I was in. It's a pretty touristy neighborhood because there's the Frida Kahlo Museum. There's this beautiful church there. There's like a square with a fountain. There's tons of restaurants and there's the famous artisan market. So it's a touristy area. So I thought I was like, oh, is he like, is this his thing? Because there's a lot of people like selling stuff on the street, walking up
Right.
to you. Do you want this? Whatever. So I was like, is this his thing where he's like offers to take your picture, like a professional photo, and
Like
then
in
you like pay
Hollywood,
him?
outside of like
Yeah.
when they're all the characters are dressed up and
Yeah.
then
Like, is
they're
he gonna
like, "Oh, do
ask
you
me
want to
for
take a
100
picture?" And
pesos
then
after this?
yeah, yeah.
Should have been fine. It's not that much, but whatever. So I was kind of like, I was like, oh no, that's okay. Cause I was like, street smarts.
Street smart.
Um, but then we were like talking and then he was like, oh, like how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm 33. And he was like, oh, like how old do you think I am? And I was like, this is a young man, okay. I was like, I don't know, like 23. And he was like, no, no, younger, I'm 21. And I was like, oh wow, you're a baby.
Baby.
And then it made me realize how old I am because I'm like, oh, that's not that young. And I was like, but I'm 12 years older than that. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting old. But anyways,
I feel like they're just such babies
they
at that
are.
age still.
Um, but he was like, oh, can I have your Instagram? Can I have your number? Maybe we can hang out. I was like, oh, fuck it. Okay.
Why not?
One thing about me, fuck it is my motto. One year for Christmas, my step siblings actually got me a hat that said "fuck it" because they were like, it just seems like Sadie's way of life, and I was like, that's true. Um, so I did give him my number, but I didn't get my picture.
Good.
But then whatever, I kept going. We're gonna circle back to that.
Okay.
Um, well, no, okay, we'll just finish this story. So, anyways, I hung out with him yesterday. He was like, oh, okay, don't get mad at me, but I did let him pick me up in his car.
I was wondering whose car you were in. And I was like, I hope this is a fucking cab. Like, this is stranger danger.
It's like he's 21. He can't do anything.
No, unless he has other people in his car or takes you to somewhere where
I know. I know. I did go, I probably should just meet him somewhere, but I was like, at the same time, my intuition tells me this is a perfectly safe situation, whatever. But anyways, I was like, this is so funny. I sent a video to I always send videos to my friend, my two friends, because the one's not on social media, so I always like send them life update videos. And I was like, okay, so I was like, I went out with this young man. I was like, I know he wants to hang out with me because he thinks I'm hot. Like, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not totally gullible to that fact or whatever, ignorant to that fact. But I'm just like, like I'm like, oh, it's somebody that wants to like take me out in Mexico City. That sounds fun. It's nice to hang out with people, whatever, you know. So so he picked me up yesterday. And I mean, like he's cute. He's a cute young man. But he like picks me up. Okay, do you know like when like men are driving cars and especially if it's like a stick shift car and like they do the thing where they're like spinning the wheel a certain way. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's how I drive.
Okay, but you know how it's like hot when men do that?
Are you saying it's not hot when I do that? Did you not like it when I did
When
it?
you do it. I notice. But anyways, this young man, he's just like
Young man.
driving through Mexico City, and he whatever. He's so cute. Does not speak great English. One thing about me, love hanging out with people that I can barely
Can't communicate with. Perfect. Okay.
I'm like, it's like, I kind of feel like he's kind of hot.
Okay.
He's like, oh no. But we went, so we went to this park, and he's, yeah, I have this, it's such a funny video because I'm gonna post it, but maybe when this comes out, I'll have posted it. But we go to the park, and he's like, do you want to watch me do a flip? And I'm like, oh my God, you're
a child. Did you ever? Oh no, wait, you didn't watch How I Met Your Mother. I forgot. That literally just made me think of there's one time when Robin is living with Ted as roommates, and she's like, I really want to get a dog. And he's like, you can't get a dog. And then she meets this guy, and his name, oh my God, I can't remember his name, but it's like a dog name. And he acts like a dog. And he's like, watch me do this thing. And he's like, oh, and they're like, I can't handle him right now. And they like throw their keys, and they're like, oh, I dropped my keys. And he's like, I'll get it. And then that's what that just made me think of.
But the thing is I am a golden retriever.
Mm-hmm.
So I am like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm such a kid. So then we spend like half the day. We're like practicing handstands, and we were like going down. There was all these slides and stuff at this park. And then he did bring his camera, and he took the most beautiful photos I've ever seen. I was like, how did you make me look like that? Like, so I did get my picture taken. But it ended up being like so fun. Like I was like laughing so hard all day. And we were just like running around this park, having a ball. And it was like, I was like, that's got to be like one of the best dates I've ever gone on. Like it was just so fun. And he was so like, he was just so sweet. He was so like he wasn't trying to be too like flirty or touchy.
Yeah.
Like, but when we would walk up to like cross a road, he'd like put his elbow out for me to like hold on to his arm, and then he would like let go when we like crossed the road. Like, you are so nice.
Bars on the ground.
I know, but like you like just like I don't know. It was sweet.
That is really nice.
Like we stopped at like this like little street vendor. He was like, oh, do you want some bread? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, let's get you some bread. But these people had stopped, and like they like I guess they didn't have enough like cash or change with them, and they kept walking, and he like flagged them down. He was like, come back, like let me, I'll get it for you, it's no problem. Like he was just really like just
wholesome,
sweet and generous and wholesome. Yeah,
yeah.
he's like such a nice guy. And I ended up having so much fun with him. And I was like, oh, this is why you say yes, even though your first instinct might be to like, no. No, you're a baby. Like, no. And then we went to get tacos, and he was like, do you want me to surprise you? And he like ordered all the tacos, and it was so good. He was like feeding me the tacos.
Oh, I don't like that. Yeah.
They're so good. And it was so fun. It was so fun. And then we're gonna hang out again. He's gonna take me to the art museum because I love museums. And
very nice.
So have a friend. That. I'm a cougar now, going out with a little
21-year-old.
It was so fun. I was like, this is why we say yes to life.
Yeah.
You know, when trust our intuition, sometimes it's a fun.
Trust your intuition.
But like, you know, like my sort of ego self was like, no, you don't need to like hang out with, you know, whatever. And but I was like, why not do it for the plot? Like, why not go experience a new place in Mexico City and like make a friend that like is Mexican and like, you know, like practice Spanish and they practice English and whatever. Yeah. It was so fun. It was like the best day ever. And I'm so glad I said yes. So this is your sign to say yes to something that your instinct is to go, no. And just say fuck it and do it for the plot.
Yeah. Unless it feels dangerous.
Well, yeah, of course. You know what I mean.
Like getting in a car with a stranger.
Well,
Sadie.
That I can say maybe that was debatable, but I'm psychic and I have but don't do that.
Yeah.
Meet him there.
Yes.
Get
Everything
a
else
ride
is fine.
that come
Everything else
after.
is fine.
But it was so fun. Okay, and then the other thing I was laughing, I was okay, so back to the tour I went on.
Uh-huh.
So I took a like guided tour. But by the way, this is a travel hack. This is if you're visiting an area and you don't want to like miss out and you're like, I don't know what the main attractions are to do, the must see, must do things are. My favorite website to go on. This is not sponsored, but it should be. But I will put a link because I think I do have an affiliate link. I've never used it though. But it's called Viator.com, Viator. And it's sort of like Airbnb for tours. Like everyone can just
Mm.
kind of like post their tours. And there's reviews and stuff so you can see it, but you can find good deals on tours. So I usually do end up doing like one tour in a new city I'm in through Viator because I'll just find a good deal and it'd be like multiple locations of things I want to see. But sometimes I don't take the actual tours themselves, but it's a good thing to like look at and know what you should do in that city or that area because it's in all the tour. Like there's like, oh, there's like 15 tour options to see this thing. I should definitely go see that thing, even if it's on my own. That's my
Yeah.
travel hack. So I know I'm not missing out on anything important because I did learn about an area I need to go to that I didn't know before. But
Mm.
anyways, so I booked this tour on Viator.com to see, I wrote down, I cannot pronounce these. Um, Teotihuacan. Teotihuacan pyramids. The pyramids outside of Mexico City.
Okay.
Teotihuacan. I'm really bad at saying it. But I also had some other stops, but that was the main thing. I want to go see these pyramids. And I was really excited to do this one because the only time I've ever done a like official like with a professional like past life regression,
Mm-hmm.
I I regressed to a past life and like when she was like, okay, like open your eyes and your mind, but like look around, what do you see around you? I saw like these like pyramids and I was like, I feel like I'm in Mexico.
Mm.
And I felt so drawn to Mexico City. And I was like, I feel like it's because in my past life, it was those pyramids
Yeah.
for some reason.
So did
And
you
when I was
experience
there,
that?
it felt a little like I didn't have like a totally like mind-blowing like
Yeah.
experience, but there was a moment when we were standing in the middle of this square where I almost got kind of dizzy and it was like I had deja vu because it looked how like when I first like opened my eyes in the past life regression where she was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "Oh, there's like pyramids everywhere." Because there's like this avenue, Avenida de los Muertos, and there's like the Sun Pyramid, the Moon Pyramid, and then there's a temple. They're actually temples because they don't have pointed tops in Mexico, but there's a Venus temple
Mm.
and all these different ones. But it did feel like deja vu, and it was really interesting. And I
Very
kind of felt
interesting.
like, yeah, I was sort of trying to tap into it, but this was so I did this. This was I did. I want to know if anyone else has gone to these pyramids, the
The pyramids outside
Teotihuacan,
of Mexico City.
the pyramids outside of Mexico City. If you took a tour there, like a guided tour, if this is what your tour guide talked about the entire time, because I, for 90% of the time we were there, he was giving us every detail of the history of human sacrifice. I was not expecting that. I mean, I knew that was like being like so graphic. I was just like,
Oh.
oh. And everyone, I was laughing because there was he was trying to do the like the give and take thing that we were talking about with the blacksmith and St.
Mm-hmm.
Augustine, or like asking a question and people were supposed to like answer, but we were all like, what? There was one where he was like he was like and he was explaining like the actual ritual itself, like what they do, and he was like, and why do they cut and through the abdomen below the rib cage? as if we were supposed to answer like he was saying it. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, so so they could reach up and grab the heart while they were still alive and pull it out and hold it until it was still beating. Were we supposed to repeat that back? Were we supposed to know that? But
Will this
okay,
be
so
on the quiz?
right. So basically, yeah, so they did have human sacrifice, and but I guess apparently it was they weren't sacrificing like members of their own community. They were sacrificing like the criminals. So like if you but like kind of like everything was a death sentence, you know, like if you like stole from your neighbor, you'd be put
Yeah.
to death, whatever. And then like they had slaves back then too,
Yeah.
back the Aztecs and the Mayans and stuff. So they weren't like sacrificing from like their own community. It was usually like criminals and apparently like I don't know, but whatever. But apparently it was also apparently this is what I got confused because he was like, yeah, it was a great honor to be sacrificed. But I'm like, but you're sacrificing the criminals. So
Yeah.
I don't know, mixed messaging there. But every detail, like about human sacrifice, I was like, okay, now I know
Thank
all about
you.
that. It was fascinating. Um, but then he was also explaining, I mean, I don't even remember the details, but just like all of the crazy stuff that you learn about the pyramids for like I think more often we hear about the crazy stuff with the pyramids in Egypt, you know, like the mathematics of it all and whatever. And so he was explaining stuff about that with the ones there too, and all of the ones in Mexico and the different connections and stuff. But he kept being like, you know, saying some amazing fact, and he'd be like, and like, how did they do it? Don't say aliens. And he was serious. He's like, I don't believe in aliens. The people that did that, it was the humans that did this, but how did they know? Whatever. And he would say something crazy, and I'm like, hey man, every time you say something crazy and then you say it wasn't the aliens, you're just convincing us it was the aliens. There's like a I wish I could remember the specifics. One of them that was crazy was like the distance between the top of the sun pyramid in in this place, Teotihuacan. The top of the sun pyramid to the sun is pi, like
Hmm.
314
How do they
blah,
know
blah,
that?
blah. Because they can now NASA and stuff knows how to like measure that. But how did they know how to do that perfectly back then? You know what I mean? It's like 3 million one or maybe it's billion. I don't know. I have no idea. 3 million one whatever kilometers. 3.14 on and on and on. The pi number. And he's like, how did they know? How did they get those measurements exact? Don't say the aliens. I'm like, obviously aliens. Obviously. And then there was something crazy, and I'm gonna misquote this, but it's like, so the first, I think it was something like this. It was like the first light of the spring equinox hits the pyramid in Egypt, and in Mexico, the Sun Temple that I was at, and the last light of the fall equinox hits the pyramid in Egypt or something. And I think I'm saying that wrong, but like it was like the equinoxes and the way they're connected and between and it's also like the measurements, but there was something crazy, some crazy coincidence of the measurement of the distance between the Sun Temple here and like the pyramids in Egypt. There was some the way it like arced, or I don't know. There was something crazy, and
Weird.
he was like, how would they do that? Aliens.
The aliens.
And
The aliens.
yeah, there was just all sorts of I had learned stuff about the Egyptian temple itself, but I didn't realize how much of it was not just in Mexico, not just in Egypt, but the areas around the world, because there's a few areas that there's these pyramids. They all have these really weird connections of like mathematics and like
Sorry, I lost the wire to my headphones in my blanket, and I tried to put my blanket on, and it's pulling my headphones off. Okay,
God.
got it. Please
and
continue.
like the yeah, and like the number of stars there are, and one of the constellations, and that is the number of pyramids, and I don't know, just crazy stuff.
That is really crazy.
And it's aliens. And so those are all my adventures. I mean, we also, that tour was really fun. We stopped at this little like place with I don't know, they were just teaching us about the culture. She had all these so Mexico is very rich in like different crystals and stuff, and it was a big part of the ancient cultures here, like the meanings of they're always like all the crystals have meanings, and I'm like, I know.
I know.
I'm like, do you see how covered in crystals I am? Like, let me show you a picture of all my crystals. But it's so funny. Every time there's crystal stores everywhere, and every time you stop in one, they're like, they have meanings. They do things. And I'm
I
like,
know.
girl, you are talking to the person that wants to talk to you about this. If I only knew more Spanish. But we got to try like different like drinks and mezcal and whatever, and it was really fun. And then I also went to, oh my god, this was crazy, the Basilica Guadalupe, which was, so there's these various, you know, miracles whatever on the world that have to do with the Virgin Mary, and on this one, this basilica is built to hold this cloth that the Virgin Mary appeared on miraculously. And I remember this date because it's about to be the 500th anniversary. So in 1531, so in 2031, it'll be 500 years because they had signs about it everywhere. But in 1531, this local like indigenous man, I think he had like this whatever cloth on. He was like talking to somebody, and like the Virgin Mary appeared on the cloth, and they've since like, and it just looks like a painting up in the church, and he was like, no, that's the miracle, like and it's so NASA has tested it, they've done all sorts of testing on it, they can't find any
And it's
evidence
still
of
there.
like paint materials and stuff. Yeah, like you can see it, it's crazy. And it's been tested. It's not like paint. It's not dye. They've done all the testing. The only material it is like the organic material of like the cloth it's made out of.
Yeah.
They can't find anything else in it because it's been tested and everything. It's beautiful, and it was really cool.
That's crazy.
And another thing I learned, and then I'll be
And
done with all
another
this
thing.
stuff. And another thing, and also, but just so Mexico is very Catholic. It's got one of the biggest populations of Catholic people. But I learned how like they've kind of like, I mean, and it's going to be like individual, different families, different individuals, whatever. But a lot of it has sort of like mixed some of the like ancient or like indigenous beliefs in with Catholicism. And so it's very it's like its own thing. Like the tour guide, for example, that we had, you know, he was like, oh yeah, I'm Catholic, but I believe in reincarnation because that's part of their culture. And he was like, you know, there's some communities that they're Catholic, but they still pray to the rain
like
god,
the old gods,
because they're like farmers, and like that's, you know, so they still like do that. And I'm like, that's the way to do it.
I was
just
gonna
like
say that's how it should be
embrace.
done.
And so there's still an amazing culture of, you know, bringing some of the ancient practices, the indigenous practices in. And yeah, it's just really cool. I learned a lot of history about Mexico, and they've really like been able to, despite how much, you know, the Spanish like from Spain like came here and, you know, try to evangelize and convert everybody. And if you didn't convert, it was like convert or die.
Yeah.
And had basically all the same tragic stuff going on as in the United States. I mean, it was everywhere over here. But the amazing thing is that the indigenous population here, it got very low, but they were able to like grow again.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna misquote the numbers, but it was something like I don't know the years, but a long time ago, it was like, I don't know, like 12 million people. And then it went down to like 3 million after the Spanish were here conquering, trying to convert people, killing people, whatever. But now it's up to like 22 million or something like that, which is pretty amazing. And they've, you know, protected their culture and kind of like bounced back. And they still, you know, Catholicism is from that time, but Anyways, I'm probably misquoting some of those numbers, but you get the idea.
You
And it
get
was a
the
really
idea.
cool, really interesting, informational um tour. And I loved it. So if you come to Mexico City, text me and I will send you the link because the tour guide. Oh my God. Okay, last thing. I'm so sorry. But you know how you're talking about those friends that they do the funny voice together from
Uh-huh.
TikTok, but they're like the tour guy kept saying, okay, so those friends, they always say like totally, completely, da 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 da, da, and they're like
Yeah,
accents. And this tour guide kept saying like totally, completely. In his accent, it sounded like that. It was making me giggle all day because it sounded like that. And it made me
that's funny.
happy. Okay.
Wait, you said a thing about crystals, and then it made me remember I had something, and I have to go get it, but it's right there, and I'll be quick. 2 seconds.
Do 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 do. I'm gonna pour more water. Pam's getting her crystals. We're rocking and rolling. I'm just filling airspace.
So,
She's back.
um, I know, I was like, it'll be really fast.
So
My
fast.
dad was just in town, and he came to my house just to see my house, obviously. And we were walking like in the backyard, and then like the front door is like over here, or the side door is like over here, and there's just like a little grassy area, and I'm there like all the time.
Mhm.
And then my dad's girlfriend Lisa was like, "Oh, wait, here." And she like saw this something reflecting light.
Whoa.
It's
Felt like a
not
smoky
mine.
quartz?
It looks like a smoky
Wow.
quartz. I've never seen it. It's not mine. Don't know where it came from. And I
Crazy.
was like, "Well, do you want it?" She's like, "No, it's for you."
It's
I was like, "Oh my
gorgeous. Such
gosh.
a nice piece.
Where did it come from?"
The
The
universe.
universe.
It's a miracle.
The
Build a
alien.
basilica. Another miracle. We got
Um,
to get NASA on this. Where did it come
yeah.
from?
I just thought it was crazy and I wanted to share
That is crazy. That's really
because
cool.
it's like huge.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
big
where
piece.
did this
Yeah,
at a
that
precious
I
story be
mean,
so expensive?
yeah, that's something I was just something like that. You pay like $50 for that. It's just like, wow. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's talk about
Yeah, because we have like an hour.
purpose and stuff. How have you been feeling about purpose lately,
Oh
Pam?
my goodness. I feel like my head has not been attached to my body for a very long time, honestly. I feel very disconnected between my brain and my body at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it comes and goes in waves. I felt really, really good, honestly, in St. Augustine. Um, I think maybe because the ocean is there and I got to like be there and I was like kind of like out of my brain a lot
Yeah,
while
I
I
think
was
when you're in
there.
new places too, it makes you be more present because you
Yeah,
have to kind of like everything's new. You're taking it in.
everything's new. Yeah.
I like traveling a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know. But other than that, I've been feeling kind of wonky about purpose because I know that my purpose is to be doing what I'm doing,
Hmm.
but I think I'm unclear on how I need to be doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I know that I'm meant to be like using these like psychic mediumship energy healing gifts that I have. I'm just like
Hmm.
unsure of how to do it right now and like what makes sense for me at the moment.
Yeah.
Um and kind of on this I've been feeling really off track. I don't know if I've said that to you recently, but I know during our like business mentorship I said it to you a lot. And I just started listening to my new thing is like listening to a book and then seeing if I like it and then I'll buy it.
Mm.
Like listening to part of it. um and I just started listening to I think her name's Jenna Zoe. She's a human design
Mm.
reader and she was talking about manifesting generators. I'm a manifesting generator. And she was like, manifesting generator, you are never off track because you're not designed to be on track. You're here
Hmm.
to groove us a new one. And I was like,
Mm.
I think I really needed to hear that because I listened to it this weekend. And I was like, I needed to hear that because all weekend, I was just like, oh my God, okay, well, my dad's in town. So I can't do any work. I don't have time to do any work. I feel really off track. I feel really off track, like with my business because I haven't been like posting at all.
Yeah.
I just like haven't been feeling called to like do the things that I like signed up and wanted to do originally. Um, and I've been really frustrated about it. And I was like, I'm so off track. I'm so off track. And then like as I'm like thinking about this, driving downtown to Broadway, like she said that, and I was just like, thank you.
Like literally using your words of like off track
Yeah.
and on track. Yeah.
Yeah. How have you
Yeah.
been feeling about purpose? You've had a big shakeup this year.
Yeah. No, I feel really, really good.
Good.
I feel really good with where I'm at right now. Do think like I think like where we all can get caught up in our heads is like my purpose is this one thing I have to
Mm,
identify, and it's just
yeah.
not that way, I don't think. Um and I mean I'm a generator, if we're gonna keep going on the human design train. And so, my job is to like respond.
Yes.
Um
That's mine too.
and like my sort of like the sign that I'm like off track in quotes is like frustration.
Yeah.
And when I learned that, I was like, wow, because like frustrated is probably the thing I experience most when it comes to like a shadow sort of experience, right? Like emotion or
Yeah.
whatever is frustration. So I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, yeah, I did a lot. I like kind of like just cleared out everything, did a big reset, taking things slow now, but it's been very interesting to, I think I was in such a like a mode of like moving so fast, and I've been really trying to like move much slower
Mm,
lately. Um, and it's felt really, really good. And it's sort of like it's like my Aries moon and Sagittarius rising, all that fire energy wants to like go, 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 especially Aries energy, the ram. They just want to be like going
yeah.
forward. Um, but I wanted to talk about this concept because the first program I ever created was called Discover Divine Purpose.
Hmm.
And it's a big part of my program that I might launch again. I don't know. Called Activate Your Magic.
Yeah.
But purpose means a lot to me because my whole life I was obsessed, and I still am, but I was obsessed with purpose, especially in my 20s and feeling really lost and like jumping from like retail job to retail job. And I was always frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? I wanted to know so bad. I agonized over what is my purpose. I was obsessed with the concept of like, what is my purpose? And so through you raising your hand.
Yes. I'm working really hard on not interrupting people because that's a big ADHD thing.
Oh,
So
I
I'm
do
like,
that
if I
too.
just
It's
raise my
okay.
hand,
And I'm like not looking at the camera. I'm like looking down and talking and like,
one thing I wanted to say too about like frustration in human design, like the not, so it's called like your not self
right. Yeah.
strategy is like frustration. And that doesn't have to be like, I'm so frustrated. Like that could be like, I'm so bored. I'm like this is stupid. When
Mm-hmm.
is this going to be over? Like how much longer do I have to do this? Um
Mm-hmm.
it could be like, well, I'm feeling like I want to be doing something else, but I have to be doing this. It can be literally like somebody telling you that you have to do something and you feeling like you have to do that instead of the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
As like a
That's good.
like if anyone else is a generator or a manifesting generator, because that's I think
The
usually the
frustration.
strategy,
Yeah.
not self.
Mm-hmm. So one thing when I started going on my spiritual journey and like discovering my purpose and whatever, one thing that always stuck out to me that I always like to share is it's a Japanese concept, and maybe you've heard of it. It's called
Hmm.
Ikigai, or
Hmm.
maybe I've talked about it and you've heard it before. But it means a reason for being. It means our purpose. And
Yes. Yeah.
basically it's almost like a formula. When you have these things in place, they come together and they overlap and they create Ikigai. So if you're watching, you can see this. Oop,
Oh my God, I'm your number one.
my number one. But you can just Google Ikigai and there's tons of like charts like this that
Yeah.
and if you're listening, it's Ikigai. But basically, if you can identify, there's basically like these four things, and you want to figure out how to overlap them as much as possible. So, one is what you love. So, the things that make your heart race, that make you light up, that bring you joy. And I would say if this episode really resonates with you, you were excited when you saw the words like purpose in the title. If you're like leaning in, do this homework, make a list of what you love, like as long of a list as possible. We have a chill right now. Somebody's going to get something out of this. All the things you love, even if you're like, I don't know, like from big things to little things, just write down all the things you love. The second piece is what you are good at, basically your natural gifts and talents. The gifts you've cultivated that maybe you loved them, so you felt called to cultivate them, right? 3 is what the world needs, how you can serve others or contribute to something bigger than yourself. That's a big part of fulfillment and feeling like we have a purpose, is feeling like we're making a difference, like we're leaving our mark. And then 4 is very important, what you can be paid for, the activities that can sustain you financially. In our day and age, people are getting paid for literally everything. So there's a will, there's a way, I feel like. But basically, you can think of these all in their own little circles, and then you find the ways that they overlap. Now, maybe it's hard for us all to find all 4 of these overlapping into one thing, and that's okay. But can you overlap 2 of these things separately and have something in your life that you can be paid for and the world needs, right? I feel like this is maybe with like teachers or nurses. Maybe that's not like absolutely like what you love. You'd rather stay home and write poetry in bed or something. Right? But like that probably overlaps with what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. So you do find purpose and fulfillment in that, and then you can make sure to create balance in your life by making sure you're making time for the things you love.
Yeah. And your purpose doesn't have to be your job.
Right. But the concept of Ikigai is saying when you can combine all of these things, that's the ultimate fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so it is a good exercise. But that's the other good point is like, and I think that's what I was obsessed with for a long time. And don't get me wrong, it is really cool when you feel like your purpose is what you're getting paid for. So go for that, search for that, be curious, explore that, find what that is for you. But in the meantime, being really being very intentional about, do I fulfill these 4 parts of my life in order to make sure that like I have balance in my life, right? So these are some really good things to reflect on, I think. But like I always, I like to say like our purpose is to be hot and have fun. Our purpose is to laugh. Our purpose is to feel good, number 1. And so I think like taking the pressure off of, because even when you're living in your purpose, it doesn't mean that life still doesn't feel hard sometimes. Doesn't mean everything is rainbows and sunshine shining out of your ass and everything is great and beautiful and wonderful. And I think too, like accepting that, and like we have the power in every moment to say yes and be like, okay, I'm bored with what I'm doing right now. So how do I make this more interesting and exciting? Today I had to clean my room because it was a big mess. After I came home from San Fran, everything was exploded everywhere. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. But I was like, okay, I am here to like be living and having fun every day. That's my purpose, is to have fun. So I like played some music and I, made my coffee. So I was sipping on that and I just made it as fun as possible, right? You gotta do the dishes every day. You hate that chore. Set up a little altar by your sink and light the candle and put your
Yeah.
headphones in and listen to a guided meditation while you do the dishes or make it, it's like I think in any moment we have the option to figure out how to make it more enjoyable, be more mindful, create purpose in that moment. And I think it's like those little moments of more intentionality, is that a word? And being like, okay, it's my job to create purpose, even in the teensiest of ways, in these different parts of my day, that like opens up that clarity. You get it becomes like a normal feeling to be in your purpose. So all of a sudden you know what overlaps with what you love and what you're good at and what the world needs and what you can get paid for because you've been practicing purpose and it's just your norm now. And so I think like that's the place to start is exactly where you are and like, okay, I hate my commute. It's so long or whatever. This is what I did at my last like quote real job. My commute was so long and I was like started my spiritual journey and I was like, okay, well, I have to figure out how to enjoy this commute. I have to figure out how to not be angry that I'm doing this every day, right? And
Yeah.
so then like I made it fun and I mean, that was mostly listening to Hamilton every day and belting it out. But like it's our job, right? Like I always felt like in my 20s, I was like waiting for the universe to like bless me with this knowledge of my like one true purpose in life. Like, okay. And it's like, it's more of a choice, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I think too, sorry, just to respond to something you said a little while ago about like being in your purpose doesn't mean that life is going to be easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like cool, you're going to be living in your purpose. And then once it starts getting hard, is because you're supposed to be leveling up to the next
Mm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
like you're playing a game,
Yeah.
like every time you're like, do, this level is so easy now. They're like, guess what?
Now it's time.
It's time. You're gonna learn some more things.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of like it would be really like not fulfilling to never struggle or overcome things because that's kind of part of I don't know, like I think as humans like, we find like meaning and fulfillment like in a in creation or like getting through things or like a sense of pride. So I mean, I think that circles back to like what I was talking about in the beginning with like living our life to the fullest and like getting so inspired by Frida Kahlo. And maybe you have things in your life like that too, like anyone listening, or somebody where you're like, I think some of the people that shine the brightest, that they just have that radiant energy, those are so often the people that have the darkest things in their history and have gone through some of the most difficult, tragic things. And those are the people that beam with so much like loving energy. And it's because they've experienced those horrible things and like transmuted it. And yeah, I think like our purpose in life is to like practice like acceptance too. I think it's like a big thing, like
Yeah.
and honoring like exactly where you are, not making the past mean anything about your future and just taking it
hmm
like
One step at a
today.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, like how can I create purpose and fulfillment and like fun? How can I feel good today?
Today. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
There's, like, to bring it up again, there's another episode of How I Met Your Mother. Uh, it's in the last season, like once they finally introduced the mother and they're telling her story.
Mm.
Um, and she was, I believe she was engaged, or they were just like together for a long time and they were in love before she meets like Ted
Mm.
with this guy, and he ends up dying like
Mm.
out of the blue. Um, and she's like finally, her friends finally like get her to go out. They're finally, it's the whole thing. And she It's part of like the Naked Man episode,
What
like
is
the
it?
second Naked Man episode, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, she's talking to this guy. She's like, I'm just feeling really lost and blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, well, like if you could have like one goal, what would that be? And she was like, to like, I think she says like to end world hunger or something like that. And he's like, okay, and then from every day forward, do one thing
Mm,
that gets you closer to that. He's like, that's all you have to do, just at least one thing.
hmm. Yeah.
It's just that
I
one next step.
I think that's really important, is also to like have goals, and they don't have to be like boss babe, girl boss goals, like, but to
Yeah.
have like, because I think like a big reason where like we start to get more more obsessed with like purpose is like after, or maybe it's like when we're like heading into college, or it's like after we've like left college, because if we think about our whole lives, there's
Mm-hmm.
always these goal posts that we're working towards,
Yes.
right? It's like the next grade, the next grade. There's finals, there's dance recitals, there's basketball games, and then tournaments and championships. There's all these things. We're going to practices. We're always like working towards something that comes to a culmination, and then like we know the outcome of it, and then it's like working towards the next thing. And then when we go into adulthood, we have a couple things we look forward to. It's like getting married, maybe having children, retiring, but we like there's no more of this like, maybe you have, it depends, maybe some people's careers do have more of that stuff, of like certain projects culminating and working towards promotions, of course. But I think it's so important for us to have things for ourselves where like, like I remember it was so sad, and it caused me so much grief when I didn't have like auditions to work towards anymore. I didn't have the Nutcracker every Christmas to look
Yeah.
forward to and work towards, or dance recitals every spring. Those were such points of fulfillment for me. And I was like, why doesn't it hit the same to like go to dance class as an adult? And it's like, you're not working towards anything.
No.
It's just to go.
Yeah.
And to go to enjoy it is fine. But there's fulfillment. Like, we're humans. We are creators. And so it's like, what kind of goalposts can you put into your life that are fun and feel exciting? Like, I don't know, like writing your book or creating an Etsy for your art, or whatever the fuck it is, that's just for you. But it's like, it's, I think, so important for us to like insert like these like culminating points into our own lives, because we don't have that anymore. And like, even as a kid, maybe we didn't always like working towards those things. Like, oh, okay, I graduated eighth grade. Great. Now I have to go back to school in two or
Yeah.
3 months and go to ninth grade. But there was also that excitement of like, oh God, now it's high school, like a new thing. We don't have those things in our adulthood as much anymore. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know. Is it like picking up a hobby? It doesn't always have to be so dramatic as like completely changing your
Yeah.
career, or whatever, buying a one-way ticket and traveling by yourself all
Yeah.
over the world, or whatever, starting a business. But it's like, can you pick up a hobby, but then can you insert like goalposts into that hobby that kind of like put a little bit of edge in it, a little bit of excitement working towards something. I
Yeah.
don't know, like that. I think that's a really big piece of purpose, is like, but we have to be more intentional about it as an adult. It's not built into our life anymore. But I think that can make a huge difference too.
Yeah. I think also like our society has been like, oh, cool, you have a hobby, now monetize it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a big part of that too is being like, okay, like you're like this part of your purpose could be just to enjoy this thing, like just
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy sitting and painting or writing, even if it ends up being a book that you never end up selling. If you just enjoy writing, then like you can even just like be sharing online, or you can keep it for yourself. Like you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be like putting these things out into the world. Like if you're feeling called to do something, like it doesn't mean that like it has to be something that you end up monetizing.
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like you have to share.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that that's not an option, obviously, but like I think it's also really important to just note that like, hey, like this could just be something that you do for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't all have to be so, oh my God, my leg is bleeding. I picked at something. So sorry, everybody.
Okay, where are your princess band-aids?
I they're around. Oh, they're actually right here. I got complimented on these by the way the other day.
Good.
Uh,
Mine are still in the car.
I keep 3 in my purse now because I always get blisters. I'll put this on in a minute. It's fine. I'm just like, I just need to stop. Just
Scratching.
have this spot on my leg that I keep picking at. I'm a picker. One thing about me, picker. Anyways, it's our job to create purpose in our life. And it all doesn't have to be so deep, but I love reflecting on that concept of Ikigai
Yeah.
and seeing how many things you can play with to overlap out of those.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a really cool concept. Sorry, I felt really called to just be like, you don't have to monetize everything because I feel like that's like such a thing that happens
Mm,
where they're like, oh my God, I've started doing like embroidery. And then everyone's like, oh my God, you should sell this. And then they start
I
selling it.
love embroidery. Well, I don't, embroidery is a little different than cross stitch. I love cross stitching. I don't think I've ever sold any cross stitches. I have sold paintings before though.
Hmm.
There is something really cool though when I paint just to paint all the time. But the couple times I have sold paintings, I'm like,
Yeah, no, it
somebody
is
wanted to pay
really cool.
money for my painting. That's so cool. I
Yeah.
would love to do that more, honestly. It's hard as a nomad to sell physical things, but start with where you're at and be intentional. And I think like, like it's cool to one to pick up a hobby for the sake of having it, but also it doesn't have to mean to monetize it, but putting like goals in place in those
Yeah.
like levels and mark it's a way to mark time, right? Instead of like,
Yeah.
oh, there's summer break and then there's a new grade and then there's finals or then there's the game and then the championship. It's like finding ways to mark time and the things that bring you joy
Yeah. That was
is
part of what I
really
wanted to say too. And then I just kept going. But yeah, like I more meant like you don't like have to monetize it. Like that doesn't have to be your like end
yeah.
goal. More just like, okay, like I want to, if you're like painting, you're like, okay, like I want to be able to get from like, I don't know, drawing stick figures to painting
Yeah.
murals type
Yeah.
of thing. Like
That's why
that
I'm
more meant.
practicing painting because I want to just be able to um paint what's in my imagination and my meditations
Yeah.
better because everything's so vivid and beautiful in my mind. And I'm like, God, I wish I could show somebody this, but I don't have the
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I do want to take classes too. But anyways, one other thing I want to talk about to wrap up our purpose talk is talking about motivation because that's a big part of, I feel like purpose or like pursuing things that we've thought about for a long time. And we just feel like, oh, I don't have the motivation. I start and I don't finish um, or I can't get started. I have this like calling in my heart. But I can't get there or I
Mhm.
can't keep going. It's just so up and down, hot and cold. Um, and so really quick, I also just felt called to remind everyone if you're, I mean, you've maybe heard me talk about this before or other people, but just intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation
Mhm.
and being really intentional about creating your life according to your intrinsic motivation because you'll find a lot more fulfillment and purpose in that too. Um, so intrinsic motivation is when the motivation comes from within you. There's a desire. Um, it's you're motivated by love, by passion, by your God-given talent, by your own inner world. You're like, I want to do this thing. It
Yeah.
lights you up. It excites you. It fills you with joy. And challenges you in like meaningful ways. Like you find a lot of fulfillment by like going through the challenging challenges of that. Like for me, I find it very fulfilling to navigate challenges when it comes to just like being self-employed and like having my own business. I find a lot of fulfillment in those types of challenges versus the challenges of like the old jobs I had, not fulfilling challenges, right? So it's like when it's like
Right.
intrinsic, it's like find fulfillment even in the tough stuff because it's like it's according to you. Extrinsic motivation is anything driven by the external, right? Like outside of yourself. So, money, recognition, society's standards, what your family says, trying to make other people proud. Um, it's more about what you can gain or achieve or trying to like do what's right according to others, rather than the joy of the activity itself, or like rather than like a good example is if you're like on a fitness journey and you're like, I really want to, go to the gym 3 times a week or something. And your motivation for that, you keep telling yourself is like, so that like other people will see you differently. That kind of motivation is not going to be fulfilling. You're never going to feel like you live up to that, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be long lasting. So you might hit a certain body weight goal or your figure looks a certain way or whatever, and you're like, oh, okay, now I don't know, now I fit more into like society's standards of body images or whatever. So I thought I would feel better because you were extrinsically motivated by those things. An intrinsic motivation for a fitness journey would be like, I want to feel good. I want
Yeah.
to feel strong. It can still be like about how you look externally, but it would be like when I look in the mirror, I want to love what I see. It's you. I want to feel proud of, that I work towards this. It's like the inner versus the outer. Same with a career path, right? Like pursuing something because your parents said you should, versus what you really want to pursue. Or,
Mm-hmm.
there's all sorts of examples of like that. So if you feel like you're struggling with motivation and you're like, this is something I know I want to do, sometimes we can still get caught up in extrinsic motivation, even when it is something, a goal that's really truly in alignment and is good for us. And it is like the right goal, but we have the wrong mindset about it. So I think that's another helpful thing with like purpose and like fulfillment in our lives is like, if we're struggling with motivation, to really like focus on, am I making this about anyone other than myself? And is that
Mm-hmm.
where I'm struggling to really like find that? Also being like super pumped and amped, kind of motivated. It's not, that's a season that comes in cycles. It's not realistic to expect that all of the time. But I've talked about this before. My favorite way to stay motivated is scripting or visualization and really holding that end result in mind. So if you feel like you're, maybe doing the Ikigai reflection and you're like, oh my gosh, I have clarity. I see something that's for me, but no way can I do that. I don't have the motivation for that, or it's too complicated, or what will people think, or whatever. Um, really like really tapping into that intrinsic motivation, holding that desired outcome, that end result so clearly for yourself. That's what keeps me going. It's like reminding myself every day of like the bigger picture
Mm-hmm.
of what I'm working towards. So if I do the little things today that like I want to avoid or I want to put off for tomorrow, and I remind myself, okay, but like it's the little things every single day that get me there, and I really want to get there. So, okay, I'm tapped back into my motivation.
Yeah.
That's my spiel about that.
Good. Yeah. I think motivation is something that I struggle with a lot. I think it's just a lot of like ADHD, just executive dysfunction. So if that is something that you're struggling with, I have found that a lot of the time, like things that most people talk about like this is how you stay motivated. Like they just don't
Mm.
they don't work for you because your brain works
Mhm.
differently. So you have to remind yourself that like it's like the spoon theory. Have you heard about this?
Mm-mm.
Where it's like a neurodivergent brain where like a neurotypical brain maybe has like 10 spoons to start the day, and
Mm.
each time they get rid of a spoon, it could be like 3 to 4 tasks. Where a
Mm.
neurodivergent brain maybe starts with like 6 spoons, and each task is a spoon. And then you're like tapped
Mm.
out for the day. I don't know if
Mm.
I'm explaining that well, but that's kind of like the idea. So it's like
Yeah.
for a neurotypical person, like waking up, brushing your teeth, showering, and like getting ready for your day is 1 spoon. But for
Uh,
me, getting up is 1 spoon, brushing my teeth is 1 spoon, showering is 1 spoon. Now I'm
gotcha.
down 3 spoons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm almost tapped out for the day. Like that takes so much like physical and
Hmm.
mental energy for me.
Yeah.
Just like get myself ready to like start my day.
Yeah.
So if your brain is similar to my brain, things that I have found is really helpful is for real like EFT tapping
Mm.
on your motivation has been
Yeah.
really helpful for me. And also like remembering to take care of yourself
Yeah.
and remembering that your brain is not the same brain that like everyone
Yeah.
else has, because we just have to work differently, and you have to give yourself that like grace of
Hmm.
knowing that like okay, I'm already down 4 spoons and it's 11 a.m.
Okay,
So
I
how are
actually
we
just
gonna
started doing something that this might help you because it just
okay.
started helping me be so much more productive. I can't remember who I don't know. Saw a reel on this, but she was like to-do lists are so anti-productive because you look at them, you get overwhelmed. It's too many things. Our brains aren't meant to hop all over the place so much. So
Mm-mm.
she was like, the most efficient way to work is to, and as much as you can, I know that everybody has different life stuff going on. There's parents, there's, your career job while trying to, maybe like us build a personal brand or a business, or I know we've got writers trying to write a book, like whatever. But she was like, basically like as much of your time that you can control, work in seasons and only have one thing on your to-do list every day. So I started switching around. So for example, I like to do a few things in my week. I like to
Mm-hmm.
post a new tapping video on my YouTube. I like to post one or two Hot Witch Club like mini like podcasts, the Giggling Witches, right? I want to send out a couple emails. I want to promote my membership and the readings, whatever. So that's a lot of different things. So she was like, work in seasons. So like I started splitting up my calendar where I was like, this week I'm only working on tapping videos. And
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be for the next month. But this week is my season of the tapping videos.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm doing this week. That's the only thing my brain is going to work on. And then I'm going to split up my days to be on the same wavelength. So like today I was writing all of the videos out.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm going to record them all. So my brain is on one wavelength. It's not going back and forth from writing, recording, making a reel, writing an email, right? And then I'm going to make all the reels that will promote those. And then I'm going to a different day write all the emails that I'm going to send out on those
Yeah.
Mondays. And and then I'm like, whoa, I I have all this stuff ready ahead of time. And I'm such a hyper focused type person where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like in the zone. I can do one thing for 10 hours if I
Yeah.
get myself there. And I realize it is really hard for me to jump from task to task to task. It's like one task gets done and then I have 5 more on my to-do list. And I'm like, well, I didn't post today and I didn't write the email because I
Yeah.
only was able to get my brain around this one thing. But I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, let me give myself permission to only do this one type of thing, but do more of it. And like that feels way easier because you're
Yeah.
not like
That was,
going back and forth.
yeah, that was another thing I was gonna say is like trying to match up your days to like be like, okay, like what can I actually get done today? And like
Hmm.
with to-do lists, when you have like an ADHD brain, if I don't write it down, I'll forget and it won't exist.
Yeah.
So, what I like to do instead is kind of just like brain dump,
Hmm.
and you're not necessarily making a to-do list. You're just like writing everything out in your brain that you're like, okay, here, oh, right. And then I forgot about this thing. Oh, yeah, I have to write about this. I have
Yeah.
to do the XYZ. And then if you
Yeah.
can look at that brain dump and pick one thing, two
Hmm.
things,
Yep.
max three things,
Yeah.
and then like I was gonna say, like try and like lump them
Yeah.
together.
That it's
Like,
similar things.
yeah, like if you're like, okay, I have to like go pick up my prescription, go to the post office and drop off this other thing, try and do all of that at the same time. Even if they're like all over town,
Yeah. Yeah.
then you're just like in the same mode of like driving, doing your thing, and then going from there.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a big
Yeah.
thing that will
But
also help
that
with like
just,
motivation because you're not like, oh my God, you're not in like decision paralysis, basically.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I definitely would make these like long ass to-do lists because I'm a Virgo and I want to like write it all down. And then I'm either hard on myself because I only got one or two things done and there's 15 fucking more things that I thought I would. But sometimes, yeah, like a task that should take 15 minutes, it takes me 3 hours because I
Oh
can't
my God. Honestly,
get
everybody
there.
talks about how easy making content is and like how there's this one girl that I follow. She's like, this will take you 10 minutes to do. I'm like, 10 minutes.
In what
Making
world?
this one video just took me 3.5 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how that just took you 10 minutes to do.
Yeah. But
And
yeah,
I already
that
had it
has
all
felt really
planned out.
good to, yeah.
Not like I would like had to like come up with my script and my caption and all the things. Like simply filming it, editing it, and posting it all just took me 3 hours.
Yeah. But I think like that goes back to and like the I wish I could remember the girl's name, but I'll try to find it and post um her handle in the show notes. But she was saying she was like create like one really good thing a day.
Hmm.
She's like if it's like one TikTok slash like reels that's like 1 minute long, but it's like the best piece of content you have ever made, who cares if it took 8 hours? It'll do that at first and then you will get faster, but just like
Yeah.
she's like just put that one thing on your to-do list today then. But so I don't know, it's like permit it felt like a good permission slip and it has really helped me to I was like, oh, I'm gonna mark out my weeks. Like this week is this theme. I'm gonna work on my YouTube videos, and this week I'm gonna work on um my like Hot Witch Club content, and this week I'm gonna work on the the launch stuff that I'm gonna do monthly for the membership, the scripting membership I have now. And it just feels I'm like, oh, it feels so much more chill and relaxed that rather than trying to do a little bit of each of those things every week. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I missed this week on that one because I lost track of time. And it's like, oh, I can just get it all done for the month ahead. And once you're in that wavelength, I'm like, oh, I did one scripting video. I can write another one. I can write another one. I can write another one because I'm already in that on
Yeah.
that highway
Yeah.
rather than doing one and then being like, oh, now I have to like get ready, but I'm going to get distracted a million times before I start recording. And then I have to upload it, but I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to start scrolling and then, oh, it's finally uploaded and, on and on and on the distractions of life.
Yeah.
It's made a big difference for me. And I just started doing it that way. It feels exciting.
Yes. Another really big
Well,
thing about ADHD is like don't sit down. Like if you get up to go do something and you sit down somewhere else, don't sit down. Don't sit down because you're not going to get back up.
yeah.
You're going to get distracted doing something else and then you're going to come back and you're going to be like, why is this email half written? Oh, right, because I was writing it 4 hours ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've also heard people say like leaving your shoes on, but I don't like walking around my house with shoes on. So maybe if you have like house shoes, that
I
could
have
also
house shoes.
help.
Well, they're
I
not
have like
house shoes. I
sandals.
have sandals.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah.
I always have my chanclas on.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways, if you have tips for motivation or thoughts about purpose, share them with us. Drop a
Hmm.
comment on YouTube or send us a DM at Giggly Witches on Instagram and TikTok. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to the Giggly Witches. Big announcement. We should have said this in the beginning, but
Yeah.
we will be going live on Tuesdays from now on. Most Tuesdays, probably not all Tuesdays, but most
Stay tuned.
Tuesdays. We'll be going live at 5 p.m. Pacific, which is 6 Mountain, 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hmm.
So mark your calendars. We'll be
Yes.
hanging out, giggling, pulling some cards. It'll be really fun to connect with you guys. So yeah, you can find us. We'll be going live on the Giggly Witches Instagram. So make sure you're following us there. Wherever you like to tune into Giggly Witches, make sure you are subscribed. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, leave a review. It helps us so much. We appreciate
Yes.
it. I'm having so much fun with my Hot Witch scripting club girlies. If you want to get in on the scripting club for next month, for November, make sure you join the waitlist. It's in the bio. We meet once a month to script the best months of our lives so far. And we have a Telegram group chat where I drop in weekly to just drop some motivation, get you, staying accountable to the goals you set. Speaking of motivation and purpose, it's a great place to stay accountable, stay in alignment, meet with a community of witchy girlies that are also just on a mission to, create their best lives. So it's not open right now, or it might be if you're listening to this later, but go to the show notes, join the waitlist, or come on in. It's really fun. And I'm also doing Hot Witch Tarot sessions that are a blend of tarot and tapping, and they're really fun. And that's a great way to hang out with me one-on-one if you want to do that. What about you, Pam?
Did you say where they could find you?
At I am Sadie Olson.
Yes.
On Instagram and TikTok. Oh, and Magic with Sadie on YouTube, where I'm building up a big juicy library of guided tapping videos that are about like 7-8 minutes long. Let me know if you have any requests on things you want to tap on. I'm having a lot of fun creating lots of content for that too.
Do you have one on like being grounded?
No, actually. I think that's did you request that in my question box the other day? I feel like somebody did. I think that's on my list to create this week. So
I know I filled out one of your question boxes recently, but I can't remember what it was. It feels like it was a really long time ago, but I think it was honestly like this weekend. Like I can't remember.
I think it was. Yeah, because I was planning out my seasons on Saturday. I had a big work day on Saturday, and I was like,
yeah, that's my request.
Okay, grounded.
Because I feel that my head is off of my body, and I would love to be grounded.
I no longer want to be decapitated.
Yes. I've been doing like my own, but it's always fun to like do somebody else's.
Yeah. I would love to make that grounding. I'll write it down.
Thanks, Mom. I am Velvet Snake Oracle on TikTok and Instagram, and I have tarot readings available, but TBH, not for long. Don't know what I'm going to replace it with quite yet. I'm working on that. That's part of my like weird purpose in between time that I'm in. So book it now or else.
Or forever hold your peace. And I stopped paying attention for a moment. Did you say your Instagram?
I did.
Okay, good. To be honest, I blacked out.
There were a couple times today I'm excited to watch this just to see my face.
Text message, I'll be honest. I'm really tired today.
I'm really
we're gonna go do our live, but it'll be fine.
It'll be good.
I'm gonna make some tea.
Do some grounding before I pull cards, but
all right, Giggly Witches, we love you. Thanks for listening. Send this to a friend who needs to hear it. We're grateful for you, and we'll see you next week.